Is everybody having fun yet?
I think I'm too old for this shit, man.
I was gonna say, what should we start off with? As I realized I didn't turn on my lights here. Is this fucking team win? I know you don't curse, DJ, but just indulge me for a second. Or is this I'm too old for this shit win? I think it's a little bit of both. Doesn't
It's a little bit of both, man. This fucking team and I am too old for this shit. My God, I thought there was a point there in the first quarter where I thought maybe they're gonna have enough to have not a laugher, but a comfortable victory. But
for 5 minutes, it was like, oh, maybe all those people who were like, yeah, Knicks in 5, maybe they're all gonna be
right. I heard Knicks in 4 talk, and listen, we'll talk.
Me and you were on an island, by the way. I said Knicks in 6, and if you asked me, you can't pick Knicks in 6. It either has to be Knicks in 5 or Knicks in 7. I would have gone 7. You went 7. We'll see if what happens. Anyway, continue.
Well, look, I mean, getting game 1 is massive. If you had dropped this game, it was at least going to be a 6-game series. So potentially you could prove those Knicks in 5, potentially Knicks in 4 predictions right. But
I hope so.
I hope so too. But and I'll let you lead us off here, but just another grind, another just intense victory. And there's a little bit of muscle memory for me where I just didn't feel, though, at the end, I felt more at ease, maybe because I'm watching so many of these that I'm just like, whatever happens, wherever the chips may fall, like let's see where it happens. But I don't know, man. Why don't you lead us off and just take us through what was another thrilling game 1 victory?
If I'm being completely honest, I'm still in a little bit of shock. I remember 11 years ago very well, and talk about a city that was hyped up for a game 1 against the Indiana Pacers. I know, damn well know you watched that game.
Absolutely.
Watched it with a couple of buddies in a Midtown bar with the woman who would become my wife. And shout out to Dolores. She was watching this whole game with me and rooting like crazy. Talk about someone who's getting too old for this shit. And it was the most deflating feeling in the world, because you're like, that feels like a harbinger of bad things, and they lost that series in 6 games. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching how this game is unfolding, and I'm watching how this game is unfolding, down by 9 points, I believe, in the beginning of the fourth quarter. And I'm like, holy shit. And I was thinking to myself, look, we're going to get into some of the bad, because there was some bad tonight, Deej. But I was telling myself, all right, if they drop this game, I still think they have it in them, because I still think they're the better team. I think they have it in them to play better, because I did not think that they played well until you got down to the last, I don't know at what point they were like, oh shit, we should probably start playing like the team across from us is playing. And I look, I don't want to disparage the Knicks' effort out of the gate. Like, look, they came out and they played Knicks basketball to a certain extent, but there was a if they were at a 9.5, it felt like Indiana was at a 10 for a lot of this game, and especially Indiana's bench.
There you go.
Right? Yeah, I mean, let's call a spade, which leads me to, I guess, the question of the night, if not the question of the series. Can you win a second-round series against a really good opponent in the NBA with 6 guys? I guess if one of them is Michael Jordan and the other 2 are his super friends, you have to start. Start with the fact that they probably stole this one. That's where you have to start. But after you get past that, how is this not, for as much as Jalen Brunson did something tonight that I think it's literally only Michael Jordan ever did it before, right? 35 points and 5 assists in 5 straight playoff games. I'll double check it right now. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the only. I think it's him and Jordan. I'm going to double check it. Okay. And then 35 or 40 or more straight points in 4 consecutive playoff games. No, sorry, 30 and 5. Oscar, Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. Excuse me. Oscar, Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. 40 or more in 4 straight is West King and Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan, the name in common on both those lists.
Yes.
it's him, and I want to make it all about him because he's doing things that never been done before. But then you look at the game from Josh Hart, and I got to tell you, Jalen Brunson did a thing that is that we're like is doing things that's only the greatest players in the history of the NBA have done. And to me, this was the Josh Hart game. And then on top of that, tie game, everything on the line. You want to talk about bowling balls? You want to talk about that's not an onion. That's a bag of onions. You know, my Lord.
Big Vidalia onion, man. That is like serious. And we've talked about it, right? Dante, get him pass away. Not only is he spacing, but he's spacing, and this is something that we talked about when he was signed here. He could space 28 to 30 feet, and that rotation is now just a few feet longer, and you get a clean look out of it.
Yeah.
Incredible second half for DiVincenzo.
The three incredible game. Really, I mean, if you look at, he started slowly. I believe he started 2 of 8, 2 of 9, something along those lines, maybe 2 of 7, something along those lines. Finished 10 of 17, finished 5 of 9 from deep. The 3 Nova Knicks combined for 91. 91, if my math, no, 92, excuse me, my math is bad. 92 of the Knicks 121 points. They got only 3 points from the bench all night. The bench only played 27 minutes all night. Credit to Mitchell Robinson, made some plays there in the second half.
Second half, yep.
Second half, made some plays.
Got some hands on. He got his hand on a couple balls out of some offensive rebounding. Yep,
absolutely. And also, I thought it's the game for the Nova Knicks. Credit Isaiah Hartenstein. I thought Isaiah Hartenstein, was it his best game? No. I thought he was okay. I thought he was fine. And then also, but I'm curious what you think, if you disagree with that. And then OG Anunoby, not OG Anunoby's best game, but when it came down to winning time, who's there to make some massive, massive, massive defensive plays, but OG Anunoby.
Yeah, he had the steal in the left corner off help in the strong side, and then he actually got a stop on Siakam, who gave him some trouble in with those isolation post ups. Now, if I'm Tibbs, I look at those shots, and I know there was a couple in the first half where it looked like Anunoby in the second quarter was gassed, and Siakam sealed him on one and got almost a layup off a post up, and another one that he got pretty deep positioning. In the second half, I thought even the Siakam makes were tough contested shots that he's a great offensive player, so he's going to make some of those. But I thought you can live with the result despite the make, because the process was fine. You weren't sending help, and then he ended up stopping him once on that spin move on the right side of the basket, and then the steal. Really big defensive plays for him. But I mean, you talk about the minutes, and I just can't. It's rare that you have a starting 5 play combined 32 minutes in a game. It's a very unique thing where you have a 5-man unit play 32 combined minutes as a group. And the Knicks starting 5 ended up outscoring the Pacers by 13 points. And that's your ball game, because they were able to withstand what was a barrage of points by the Pacers bench, especially in that first quarter, first run. And then in the second quarter, where it just looked like they were playing at a different speed. This was one of those things where I came into the game thinking that the Pacers' depth was going to be a problem. It's the primary reason why I thought this series was going 7. What I didn't factor in as much was the amount of speed, athleticism, and just bounciness that lineup has when they go to McConnell, when they go to Toppin, when they go to Jackson, who gave Mitchell Robinson all kinds of fits in that second quarter. And they just were, it seemed like the Knicks had their early run where they were playing well, and then, whether it's fatigue or whatever the case was, didn't have the same verve in most of that second quarter. And the Pacer reserves took advantage of that. So credit, and it worried me going into the second half. But listen, I thought there was going to be maybe an expansion of the rotation, and Tibbs was like, expand. I am contracting because Precious, you played some minutes in the first half. You're not playing in the second half. We're going with who I trust. And right now, with 6 guys.
Let's just say the numbers. Josh Hart didn't sit in this game. I mean, I'm going to read his stat line because it's not a real stat line. Josh Hart played 48 minutes, scored 24 points on 13 shots, mind you, hit 1 3, 13 rebounds, 4 on the offensive glass. That is half of New York Knicks' offensive rebounding total. Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson combined for 3 offensive rebounds. Josh Hart had 4 by himself, 13 rebounds total, 8 assists, 3 steals, did have 5 turnovers, including one that really could have cost the Knicks if they didn't get a little fortunate down the stretch and if they didn't employ the talents of Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo. But I feel like we've said this a few times already in this postseason. Was this the best game of Josh Hart's career? It has to be in the conversation.
Wasn't he at points in that game the only Knick that seemed to have a verve, to seem to be able to match the athleticism and the pace the Pacers were playing with? There were times in the second. Go ahead.
No, he was the defibrillator. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Defibrillator. Yeah.
Defibrillator.
The keeps you alive. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to paint it like the Knicks were a dead team walking out there, but there was something we saw in the last 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever it was. That's them on 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were not at that the whole game, with the exception of Josh Hart, who played all 48 minutes.
He is, and it's getting to the point where it's becoming customary, and I'm glad we're sitting with this a little bit and letting his performance marinate a bit, because it is extraordinary. It's why he's one of one. He's one of one. The amount, and I keep waiting for the moment where I'm going to watch him, whether it's a grimace, whether it's a motion to the bench, whether it's a possession where he takes one off. I've never seen him take a possession off, despite playing the entire game at the level that he's playing with. It is incredible, and yet he's still able to do enough in the skill department as a finisher, as a shooter when he has the opportunities and he needs to make a big shot. We've seen that time and time again. As a free throw shooter, which I don't have the numbers, but I feel like his free throw shooting, well, he missed a couple.
He missed 3 tonight, including one in the fourth there that was potentially big. Ended up going 5 of 8. Yeah.
5 of 8. All right. So not great from that area, but then the second half, I feel like he was, with all that's pushing against him and all that is being asked of him, as the only source of transition offense, as the only source of playmaking in a non-half court setting. It's another incredible performance in what is shaping up to be not only the Josh Hart game time and time again, but the Josh Hart playoff run outside of the obviously the Jalen Brunson. He is now certified himself as a capital S superstar and an MVP and all that.
We're going to get
Josh Hart is
next.
right. Yeah. Josh Hart is right there in terms of impact, in terms of like how important he is for this team winning these playoff games. Incredible.
I mean, I remember after they made the Josh Hart trade last year and the team won, nine games in a row. Mm-hmm. And even after the first couple games, some of the old heads were, and I've said this before, some of the old heads were coming out of the woodwork and being like, I remember the DeBusschere trade. This gives me the same vibes. And I would honor those comments because the vibes were amazing. And at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm thinking to myself, well, Dave DeBusschere's a top 75 player of all time. He is, he's you could argue he's the 4th or 5th greatest Knick of all time. So Dave DeBusschere, not a role player. Josh Hart is starting to make a case for himself as forget one of the great role players in Knick history. Man, he's never making an all-star team. It's never going to happen. So that's I think the definition of a role player, a guy who's never going to sniff an all-star team no matter what they do. Mm-hmm. He is, how many role players in the history of this franchise can you point to and be like, oh yeah, definitively better than him? Now, if you want to tell me Charles Oakley was better because he actually was a role player that became an all-star, or John Starks, even the same thing. Those guys were different kind of animals. And more than that, it was a different sport back then. What Josh Hart is doing, Josh Hart could have played in the early 2000s. He could have played in the 90s. He could have played in the 80s. He could have played in the 70s. He could have played in the 50s. Probably would have been a center in the 50s. It's unreal. And the reason why we are able to appreciate having a player of this nature is because they have a guy who is... Here's where I'm at with Jalen Brunson. He scored 40 tonight, right? What did he finish with? Did he finish with exactly 40? 43, excuse me.
43. Yep.
Finished with 43 points. And I'm like, I'm at the point where I'm like expecting this, which is insane and so completely and totally unfair. DJ, he scored 43 points on 26 shots. He went to the line 14 times. He made all 14. I can't imagine there have been too many perfect nights from the line in playoff history with players shooting that many more than 14. I have not paid attention to Twitter because there's been a lot of stuff coming in. Although here we go. Here's another one from Knicks PR. Brunson became the first player in NBA history to record 40 points and five or more assists in 4 straight playoff games. So again, like it's not hyperbole. He's doing things that have never been done before, to say nothing of the fact that he is doing it at this size. The 4 names that I read before, what was it? Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Oscar Robertson, and Kobe Bryant. Those guys are all wings, you know? Even the other list, about 40 or more in 4 straight playoff games. Jerry West, Bernard King, Michael Jordan. Like, Jerry West is the smallest one of the group, and like Jerry West was he wasn't, you know, we're not talking about Tiny Archibald here. Like, he's the logo. This should not be possible, which is maybe why it's not even overwhelming me as like, how is this happening? Because it just seems like a dream. And I don't know how else to describe it, because it should not be possible.
No, it should not be. And what was amazing tonight was that he did it in a way that he has not been doing it, where time and time again, especially in the second half, they were just trying their damnedest to get Haliburton switched onto him.
Yeah.
And Nembhard, to his credit, wouldn't allow himself to be screened. And the Brunson, in any pick and roll situation, it was a rare event where the Knicks would get 2 to the ball, where they would get the Pacers in rotation in the first half. Brunson had to do this basically via isolation, which has not been a great source of offense this year. So, I mean, as a team, the Knicks scored 1.6 points per possession out of isolation. That is a extraordinarily high number, and that is almost all Jalen Brunson driven. He made tough shot after tough shot. Listen, you've talked about this. I've mentioned it. There's a few archetypes that could really give him problems. It's like the switchable center. It is the long, athletic, rangy wing. We saw that in the Sixers series where Oubre gave him trouble at times. Nembhard, for all his ability as a defender, he stayed in front almost every time. There weren't a ton of blow-bys, but when Jalen Brunson wants to rise up, his visual to the basket is much cleaner against Nembhard than against any of the Sixer, other than Maxey, any of the Sixers that he had to play in round 1. So he made, I think, only 1 3 on the night,
and it was
Brunson.
It was a big
nothing
one.
happening
Oh my
on
God.
that possession. It was basically him standing at the top of the key, like, all right, there's 3-4 seconds left, 2 seconds left on the all right, I'll shoot it. Cashed it.
And it was
an amazing shot. Very highly contested shot. So you mentioned the free throws, 14 of 14, and then all the shot making against really as strong a contest as Nembhard could put forth in most occasion. He's an incredible shot maker, and he's insane. 6'1". I love his release point. He's made to make shots over guys. He shoots more like he's 6'4" in terms of like where his release is actually. He's actually releasing the ball like it's a unique feature of his, and he takes full advantage of it. And he did it masterfully tonight. His jump shooting in this game in 2-point range was extraordinary. I can't wait to go back and watch it again. Like, it was a masterful performance in a way where, in a situation where it required it. Like, there was just not the Pacers, to their credit, weren't allowing themselves to be put into heavy rotation. They were like, Jalen Brunson is going to shoot us out of this game, and we're going to just live with it. And he did. And it started in the first quarter. We hit a couple of shots, and I was like, all right, is Carlisle going to adjust to this? They were tough makes. The first one in the right mid-range area, and then the second one, a turnaround jump shot against Nembhard on the right around the left elbow. First 2 shots of the game, Carlisle, to his credit, I think, didn't adjust and was like, all right, I'm going to force this guy to make shots like that all game. And God damn it, he did. And that's why he's an MVP candidate, and that's why he's a superstar, because you could do the thing you wanted to do as a defense, and he still scored 43 on 26 shots.
We're at the
incredible.
We're at the point now where, like, look, MVPs are kind of a finicky beast. Like, there will be some years where you'll get guys who will win it, which in what are not like all-time great seasons. We're in the midst of a stretch here for Jokic where it's like nobody's getting MVP over that guy. And like, look, we may be in line for like some Lucas seasons and some some Wemby seasons and
Giannis is still 29. Yeah,
Giannis is still young, and Anthony Edwards. Jalen Brunson is good enough to win an MVP. Like, there have been MVP seasons in the past that have featured the level of play that Jalen Brunson is exceeding right now. That's not a hot take. That's not like, it's not because we're sitting here. I'm wearing a Jalen Brunson jersey. Shout out my buddy John Schmielk. That's not any of that. It's just, that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. We could sit here and talk about Jalen Brunson for hours, but part of the craziness about what he's doing is, like, again, what can you say about him? Because we've said it all, but we will talk about him more. I do want to get to a couple things before I let you go. Look, I don't want to go too heavy on the X's and O's tonight because I have the pleasure of having you and Benji, I think, both of you guys tomorrow night, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I want to save some of the nitty gritty for that. Well, let me start by acknowledging two things. One, the Knicks were fortunate late in this game. Off the top of my head, one, that was not a kickball. And you can't apparently review something that is not a kickball, or something that is called the kickball and it may not be a kickball. Carlisle had a challenge. I wasn't able to use the challenge there. So that, they only showed one replay. I didn't think it was a kickball. They made the call that it was. It was very lucky that they called it that way. That's number one. Number two, and both broadcasters said it, and I don't think that they were wrong to say it. I'll throw it to you on this one, though. You're not getting that call usually on Turner. Yeah. In that situation.
I agree. And I said it I was doing the playback with XJ. We both were adamant that was a rough call in that moment. But I think it's one of those where DiVincenzo, he hits the deck. You're probably, your instinct as an official is to call something, because and I don't know what an offensive foul is anymore in the NBA.
Well, nobody knows.
Clear on that. I don't think officials know, like, when it's a very ambiguous call 9 times out of 10. It's very frustrating. It's one of the more frustrating things that the NBA has yet to figure out, the officials specifically. I didn't think that should have been called. And once and now if you're a Pacer side of things, the crappy part is, like, once you call it, on every screen there's 4 or 5 things you can critique and say, oh no, but that's illegal. That's illegal.
Tough to overturn.
You can't overturn it because there's just so many things. Like, was he moving? Was he turning? Were his feet outside the width of his body? Was he the base too wide? Like, there's so many things, not counting the fact that he may have not allowed DiVincenzo a chance to get around him by setting the screen too late. But again, it's a tough call to make in that area. And the Knicks were fortunate that it happened.
Very. Now, the only thing I'll say, and it's a little asterisk / caveat, whatever. There was a defensive foul on DiVincenzo within the last minute or two.
Where Nesmith kind of flopped a little bit.
Yeah, and you could say the same thing about that call, that's not usually a call you're going to see in that spot either. True. DiVincenzo was livid at it. So, look, not apples to apples. I do at least want to point that out in fairness. And that's the stuff that's the referee stuff.
Yep.
And then just in terms of getting a little lucky, like, you overcame some less than ideal execution there in the last minute. Brunson,
and Jalen's part of it.
Yeah.
He's a part of it. And they struggled all night, seemingly getting the ball in bounds. Pacers were showing a lot of they were pressuring a lot in the 94 feet. McConnell was great at it. The Knicks didn't seem, and Hart was the designated inbound player for most of those, if not all of them. And it didn't seem like he knew exactly where to go at all times. Like, there was the one to Mitch where Mitch was the only player open, and you could tell Hart second guessing himself, but then had to throw it to him because the clock was about to run down, or the 5 second, and then Mitch at the last moment turns his head and it's a turnover. So it wasn't just like the last 2 minutes of the game. It was almost the entire game where they just struggled in that area. But you steal the win and you hope that is an area that you could figure out a way to clean it up pretty easily going into game 2.
That stuff I'm not as worried about cleaning up. And now I'm going to get to the other part of it. The pick and roll coverage, and they were doing a fantastic job of making sure that they were putting the Knicks in a position where, oh, you want to switch this? Well, guess who's going to wind up on Miles Turner? It's going to be Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
And they were creative in doing it, and credit to them. You know, we always talk about how, Thibodeau team, guys train their bodies to play this many games, this many minutes. Well, the Indiana Pacers have been training themselves to play with this movement offense and like constant flow and everything. So they are experts at putting other teams in binds, in serious binds. And boy, do they put the Knicks in a lot of binds tonight. And the Knicks need to get their stuff together in terms of, okay, when are we switching? When are we fighting? And all this stuff. They did not have their stuff together enough tonight. I am hopeful it will improve. And again, we're going to get more into this a lot tomorrow night. So just like some brief thoughts on that.
I thought it got better late, and I thought the Pacers, to their detriment, went away from it a little bit.
They did.
And that tends to happen late in games for, there were a myriad of reasons, but it felt like the Knicks never really figured out what they were wanting to do. The Turner dives to the front of the rim were crushing at times. And it was, as you mentioned, like forcing the switch, and Turner does a good job of sort of not even allowing you to get off him. So as soon as like Brunson hedges, like Turner's already sort of like walking him into the paint, and then you're basically in no man's land. So it's not saying anything that's unique or creative, but the number one way to slow them down is to have a heavy switch defense. It is not something the Knicks have that is they can go to with consistency. I don't think that Tibbs, that's not his modus or MO. Now, the personnel wise, it also makes it a little more challenging. I think there's going to be a decision of the Mitchell Robinson piece of this, because I presume he's going to him in game 2 as the first big off the bench, but I would be very concerned about those minutes tonight. And I would be wondering personally, if I'm the head coach, if you would want Precious in the game just to have the option to switch those actions. And Precious can hold up on an island against any of their guards, especially Haliburton.
Well, Hartenstein held up early against Haliburton, and we didn't see it that much more again. I'm just worried, and again, we'll get into this more tomorrow night, but like, if you're going to start switching everything, how easy is it going to be to, again, get the Turner on Brunson matchup, or maybe a Siakam on Brunson matchup and stuff? Like, can you if you're going to switch everything, how hard is it to just keep Brunson out of the switches, but like switch everything else? And then the only other thought I had is like, all right, well, why are they being put in this sort of bind? And I mean, it just feels like it's all in an effort to prevent the Pacers offense from like getting downhill. Because when Pacers offense, and specifically Haliburton, although TJ McConnell too, when it starts getting downhill and they start whipping around these passes, then it's over. Then you're in the blender, right? And then it's like you just hope they miss. And by the way, the Knicks, fortunate tonight. Pacers only took 26 threes. That maybe I'll give a little credit for the defense for. Only hit 10. There were a lot of open looks in the ones that they missed. So again, it was a fortunate win for the Knicks, 100%.
Well, I will say to the Knicks' credit, 22 of those came above the break. So listen, if you're going to give up open threes,
thank you.
That's the area that you're right. They only took 4 from the corners, made 3 of them. So you live with that. Now, I will say, I came away thinking, the Knicks were not carved up, but they were tested pretty severely in pick and rolls. So I'm just looking at the numbers here. The Pacers ran 40 per the tracking data. Pick and roll ball handler possession. So basically all the Haliburton stuff, 40 of them. They only scored 0.85 points per possession. So it's a little bit lower than you would think.
Low for what we saw.
So it's not a great number. And I thought it might have been more of the Pacers going away from it late and just not getting a ton of success
maybe
out of it in the second half. Now, again, it's going to require like a rewatch, which I'll make sure to do prior to our program tomorrow. But it is the Haliburton piece of it is interesting because he really didn't make the Knicks pay that often tonight. Do you have his final?
I have it
stat
right
line?
here. So, and was going to be so if I'm Rick Carlisle right now, I'm looking at my team and I'm going to be like, we got jobbed by the refs. And our guy who we know can be better was 2 of 6, 2 of 5 from 3. Tyrese Haliburton took 1 shot inside the arc. Now, look, back spasms. He's been dealing with a hip thing for 3 months. May have turned his ankle there on that last play. Hamstring, excuse me. Thank you. Yeah. Hamstring. May have turned his ankle on that last play. 6 points. He was a minus 12 in his minutes. 8 assists. 3 turnovers. 8 assists, 3 turnovers. It's you're telling your team, look, Tyrese is going to be better. Hopefully we'll get a better whistle. Like we can. They're not getting any deeper. Right. That's the other thing I'm telling my team. That team over there is not getting any deeper. Let's keep our foot on the gas. Let's not get discouraged. That's what I'm telling my team. But yeah, Tyrese was not great tonight.
Yeah, and he just hasn't been all playoffs. I feel like he's been okay. He in the Milwaukee series. I felt like he was, let's make the right play. Let's move. Let's keep it moving. All the things that make him a phenomenal point guard were present in that series and were present tonight in stages. But what was making him like a borderline, I don't know if he was an MVP candidate at one point, but like a close to a top 15 player, certainly a top 5 offensive player at a point.
I mean, after 35 or so games, I had him on my first team All NBA.
Yeah, he was that level of a player, and it was predicated not only on his passing, but the shooting off the dribble at a pick and roll. Like that feature has been gone for a long time, not just a few weeks. We're talking a few months. And it could be the hamstring, it could be the back issue that you've mentioned. But the point is, I feel the Knicks were and need to lean into this a little more. Just make him shoot you out of a game. Do the thing that Rick Carlisle tried to do to Jalen Brunson and the Knicks and say, listen, we're not gonna let all the ancillary pieces beat us. You're gonna have to do it. That's where the Knicks need to be in terms of the Haliburton piece, because he has not shown any ability to consistently make shots or create looks for himself. That's the other part. He just isn't getting shots off.
TJ McConnell is by far at this point a better shot creator. And my God, do the Knicks need to have a huddle about what the F to do about this little shit. Josh Hart said it, so I can say it about this little shit.
Well, thank God he only plays. So he played 22 minutes tonight, 18 points on 16 shots. He doesn't get to the free throw line, and he can't make a 3 that where he's not completely unguarded.
Made the one. Well, it was his foot on the line, so they took it.
In the corner there, he had a foot on the line. So,
by the way, sorry, the Knicks had a point taken away. I don't know if you noticed.
104 at one
Why
point.
Was that? We never.
I don't know. I think TNT had the score wrong because it was 104, 109.
Okay.
I think the TNT broadcast had the score wrong.
Whatever it is.
Sorry, it was 104 at one point, and then it was 104, 103. And I'm like, what the hell happened?
I was confused. But anyway, McConnell. So actually, now that I'm looking at it, I mean, look, 18 points on 16 shots is actually not a great game. So maybe whatever. Maybe it's not a big deal.
He felt like he impacted the game though in a unique way in the second quarter, or the way he came in the first quarter. But in the first half, like I felt like he was an important piece.
Look, their bench. Ben Shepherd, 18 minutes, plus 13 points. TJ McConnell, 22 minutes, plus 9 points, 18 off the bench. We haven't said his name yet, but credit to him. Came in and absolutely, you want to talk about a game that he had at his own stomping grounds. Obi Toppin, man, hats off to you, buddy, because you came in and you showed the Knicks organization and really, let's call a spade, this coach who had never fully bought in. Right. Mm-hmm. And you showed him like, look, it might only be as a 15 to 20 minute guy off the bench, which we played 19 minutes tonight. Right.
Yeah.
That's probably all he's ever going to be. But in that time, boy, did he impact winning 19 minutes plus 4. And then Isaiah Jackson, man, only 13 minutes. Very interesting that they did not go back to him more in the second half. I wonder what Pacers post-game shows are saying about that tonight, right now.
Yeah, he was a beast. I mean, he had a couple like rear contest blocks, changed the game in his first run there. I don't know. Maybe listen, he's obviously has a beat on his players. Maybe he knows that there is considering the effort level and like what all the energy stuff, that there's a limit to that. And maybe he just he capped it obviously pretty early, but yeah, I thought he was a major problem for the Knicks. You steal games in series, and you usually have to steal several of them if you're going to make a long postseason run. And this one is classic. You stole this victory, and I don't get. And I don't know how you were thinking when Jalen Brunson had a couple just really odd decision making, like to throw the ball out of the player to regain the possession late in the game instead of calling a timeout.
Like that was strange. And then it ended the one where Tibbs uses challenge and it ended up being Knicks ball. That was awfully cavalier. It was like I feel very uncomfortable sitting here and criticizing a guy who, again, doing things that it's like only top 10 all-time players have ever done. That's the territory we're in.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
It was a little uncharacteristic there at the end. Absolutely.
Yeah, but he obviously just was able to figure it out. Where do you think they go with the rotation piece of it? Because
let's end there. Now I talked about what I would be saying if I was Carlisle. If I'm Tibbs, I'd be like, if I'm Tibbs, I'd be cursing a lot more than I'm going to be. I'll curse here, but I'd politely tell my team.
And you would have a beautiful amber beard instead of
that's exactly it. I need to shave though. I need to get a haircut. I need to shave. I'd be like, look, we're not defending like that again. We're going to get that shit sorted out. And I guess the nice thing about it is I don't know that the Pacers have like some adjustment on offense. I mean, this is just what the Pacers do, so it's just about, all right, maybe it's a matter of like, we got to see it. We got to see it for a game. We got to see it for 2 games. We got to see it for 3 games. What I was worried about was, okay, maybe the Knicks are going to take a little while to get used to it. Are they going to, is that going to cause them to lose game 1 at home? I do think getting game 1 is massive. I would love to get game 2. I don't think game 2 is as imperative as game 1 because now at this point, it's like, look, at very least, make it to 2 after 4. We all hope that it's going to be a lot better than that, obviously. But like, you got the one you really had to get. They'll be better defensively. There is no like I don't even know what, like I'm picturing the movie The Fly, where he goes into the chamber and he comes out of the other. There's nothing back there in the locker room that's going to produce a human. Mm-hmm. This is who they got now.
And
do I think no, I'll throw it. I was gonna just say, like, do I think Deuce will be better? Like, yeah, I think Deuce will probably be a little bit better. He didn't look like he belonged on the floor tonight. Mitchell Robinson,
he's got his hands full with TJ McConnell. It's like his kryptonite in a way.
It's very strange. I mean, I thought we were going to get some Burks. I didn't think Precious himself was bad. I just what my surprise was, whether it was Rachua or whether it was Burks, I expected the 8th man to play with Brunson. Maybe that's the adjustment that we get, or alternatively, is he looking at this and being like, look, I don't want to disrupt my bread and butter at all. Like, you just quoted the lineup data for when the Knicks had all 5 starters out there. Is Tibbs looking at this and be like, look, I gotta maximize that. And then it's about survival in the other time. So I'm not going to lessen what I know works in an attempt to figure out something new that may work and may not work. And does he divert course on that? We don't know.
I don't think there's every indication he's not going to divert course. I feel like he is. And I think there's valid points on either side. I would have liked to see more expansion of the rotation. It's not going to be there. The Achua minutes at the 4 They were rough, especially offensively, and not because of him. Listen, it's not his fault. It just is what it is with the spacing, with Josh Hart obviously in the game as well. With the center, it just is not tenable. We saw this story during the regular season. It's not a good one, and I didn't think we were going to have to relive it in the playoffs. But there's going to be this is a war of attrition. That just feels like big picture. If you're looking to make a significant run here beyond this series, do you have to look at the bigger picture here, even if, and this is not how Tibbs thinks. I know that I'm saying this knowing the head coach is going to view this as, I need to win tomorrow. I need to win the game after that. He's not thinking like the Boston series potentially. I know that. And maybe he shouldn't. And that's valid. But I feel like for this team to really maximize their run here, there's going to have to be a change in some way to give something to these guys to rest a little bit. But I don't see it happening.
The freaking loss of Bogey. You called it out. You're the only person I saw really go hard on this. You were like, you weren't pussyfooting around. Like, you were like, this is massive in this series in particular. Like,
you're not going to expose him as much defensively.
Nope.
He didn't shoot great in the
25 minutes easy in this game.
Yes. And he would have loosened things up. You could have theoretically given Brunson more of a break and run some offense through him. He probably would have figured out a way to get some decent looks against this particular defense. It's a big loss. Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Look, and then look, let's end. Here's where we're gonna end. Well, actually, we'll get to our. I've monopolized too much of your time. You need sleep. I'll end with you here. This gets us back to. We'll finish with this. The absurdity of the fact that this team can continue to win games like this when they are missing ostensibly their second best player and the guy that they traded for, who they thought at the time that they traded for him was going to be at least their sixth man and maybe a guy who would be even more of a significant figure for them than that. I'll go back to the thing I said about Brunson. It should not be possible what they're doing. They continue to find a way to do it. I don't quite know how they continue to figure out a way to do it. They got a little assistance tonight, by the way. Zach Zarba in the pool report, he said it was not a kickball. So, they got fortunate tonight. You hope that good fortune will propel them to a series win, even though they got their hands cut out for them. But man, this fucking team. What can you say?
The only thing I'll finish with this. The offensive rebounding was a major narrative. It was in the 76er series. Will be in this one. The Pacers held the Knicks in check in the first half, and as was a theme as the series with the 76ers went along, the Knicks in the second half managed to just poke enough holes in the offensive rebounding area and ended up getting 13 second chance points, 6 offensive rebounds in the second half. It's not an amazing number. They've certainly offensive rebounded better in halves before, but it's just enough to eke out a victory. And it's that when you talk about how do they keep doing it? How does Josh Hart in minute probably 38 come diving in and the two-handed rebound, and how does Hartenstein continue to get hands on ricochets and create all second chances? It's just doesn't make sense. It's flies in the face of everything we've been told, especially with this sport, with all the load management stuff, with everything we've been talked about. The fact that this team is doing what they're doing it's one of the more extraordinary things I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. That's why we, and not just you and I, but especially you and I, because of where we've come from as fans and where we cut our teeth as fans in the 90s. And it is a special group that continues to defy the odds in terms of the amount of bodies and the amount of energy and the amount of effort. And I'm thrilled to keep watching them, obviously. And they have a chance in game 2 to really step on their throats. And there's certainly some things to clean up, but great start. We'll take the good fortune. We'll take the win. You steal them, and you need to steal some in a long playoff runs, as I mentioned before. And This is one you stole, but no one. You need to apologize to no one. It's a good playoff wins or playoff wins.
Yeah, no, look, Knicks have been on the wrong end of stuff. Every team's on the wrong end of things sometimes. You still, at the end of the day, need to take the good fortune and make something of it. And the Knicks did that. Was it a kickball? No. Did Dante DiVincenzo make not even the shot of his life, because he did that last series, but it's right up there on the, on that possession. Yes, he did. So credit to them. DJ Zulo, I'm going to talk to you more in depth about the X's and O's tomorrow with Benji. I cannot wait to my role tomorrow when I talk to both of you guys is just, I'm like tossing the softball up, and you guys just go, it's not even that. You know who I am? I'm the is there a sport where somebody like tosses I'm the ref. I'm tossing the ball up, and you guys just go back and forth with it. There it is.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun. Enjoy the rest of the night. I'm gonna try to rewatch at least the first half, so I don't have too much to do tomorrow. But fun to talk about these wins with you.
Yeah,
have a great night and enjoy it.
Special stuff here. Thank you, DJ.
All right.
Shout out to DJ Zulo. If you're not already doing so, go follow him on Twitter. Like, he's just unbelievable with his analysis, with his commentary, with everything. I also want to shout out my brother, who just texted me, and I think my mom, both my brother and my mom, both watching. Shout out to mom. Shout out to my brother Coco, and shout out to our friends at Penn 6.